Namo Buddhassa. Welcome all to our weekly Dhamma sessions with Living Dhamma USA, part of ANA USA group. And we, as usual, we create our weekly Dhamma activities, and part of that is our weekly Dhamma sessions. Today we have Ayya Sudinna from Carolina, USA. And the topic today is Vitakkasanthana Sutta.
Right.
Normally it is translated as a sutta of calming the mind, calming the meditation, calming the thoughts while doing the meditation. Very important sutta. And we are very happy to welcome Ayya Sudinna today to be our teacher for the series today. Before we request Ayya to start for the Dhamma Desna, I just wanted to introduce our speaker. A Sri Lankan by birth, Bhikkhuni Sudinna was ordained as a samaneri in 1999 by Bhante Gunaratana at the Bhavana Society. She received the higher ordination, that is her Upasampada, in 2002 in Sri Lanka. In lay life, Ayya Sudinna served as a teacher in government schools and as a lecturer in English at the Government Teachers Training College, Maharagama, and later under the Higher Education Ministry in Sri Lanka. She has an honors degree in English and an MA in Buddhist philosophy. She is the author of 3 children's storybooks titled Delightful Tales, Precious Tales Part 1 and Precious Tales Part 2. In November of 2012, Venerable Ayya Sudinna was invited to serve the community at the Carolina Buddhist Vihāra, where she has been so far and is currently conducting all religious activities there. So without further ado, I wanted to pay our respects to Ayya Sudinna and invite her for the Dhamma talk today. Ayya, please go ahead, Ayya.
Okay. I can't see myself.
You can start your video, Ayya, if you want it. Yes, Ayya, we can see you. Namo Buddhassa, Ayya. Vandami, Ayya.
1, 2. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Samanta cakkavalesu atra gaccantu devata saddhammang munirajassa sunantu sagga mokkadang dhammasavana kalu ayang badanta dhammasavana kalu ayang badanta Dhammasavana kalu ayang badanta. Friends, this Saturday, 16 September, I am here to give a Dhamma talk at your organized program. And first of all, I like to thank the organizers of this program for inviting me to give this talk today. Today we'll be studying the Vitakkasanthana Sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya, or the middle-length discourses of the Buddha. The word vitakka has many meanings. Some of them are reflection. You know what reflection is, don't you? That is thinking about things, reflection. Thought, or the character of fixity or steadiness. That is, as in the introduction, it was said, that is to know what you are doing, the character of fixity or steadiness. And they could be wholesome or unwholesome or neutral. 3 kammikali akusala unwholesome thoughts are kama vitakka or sensuous thought, vyapada vitakka or hateful thought, and vihinsa vitakka or cruel thought. Their opposites are nekkamma vitakka or thoughts of renunciation, avyapada vitakka or hatelessness, avihinsa vitakka or not harming. These latter 3, the later ones that I talked about, are considered right thought. And it is the second link of the Noble Eightfold Path. The word santana too has many meanings. Some of them are composition, cessation, laying hold of a thought. That is, you think of something and you continue thinking about it, laying hold of a thought and giving it attention. Its characteristic is fixing the consciousness to the object. That is the characteristic of santana. Thus, Vitakkasanthana may mean reflection of a thought and holding on to it. Or it could be the fixity or steadiness of the thought that one gives attention to. It could be, as I said earlier, wholesome or unwholesome. The Buddha is realistic and practical in all his teachings, for he instructs from his own experience. Before he attained enlightenment, he divided his thoughts into wholesome and unwholesome, and seeing the danger in the unwholesome, abandoned them. But ultimately, he considered that with excessive thinking, he would tire his body and strain the mind and lose concentration. Therefore, letting go of all thoughts by steadying the mind internally and quietening it brought it to singleness, one-pointedness of mind, and concentrated it so that his mind would remain unstrained. In this sutta, the Buddha teaches us how to discipline our thinking. Why do we need this discipline? Because our mind is two-sided. There is a mind that creates thoughts on its own. which are uncontrollable. And the other, that we purposefully put ideas in. The Buddha says, by giving attention to a sign, if evil, unwholesome thoughts arise that are connected with desire, hate, and delusion, then she or he should give attention to another sign that is wholesome. The Buddha gives 5 techniques to consciously manage our thinking. Now, this is found in the Sutta. The first is by using a different sign that is wholesome instead of the unwholesome one that one gives attention to. The Buddha himself helped Queen Khema to change her conceit regarding her beauty. I'm sure you know the story. I'm not going into the story. Because the Buddha talked about old age, sickness, and death, she was reluctant to visit the Buddha. But one day she happened to visit Veluvana, where the Buddha was, because King Bimbisara had offered it, donated it to Buddha, and came up to the Buddha unknowingly. Then she saw an exquisitely beautiful girl standing near, fanning the Buddha. Khema stared at the beautiful girl in admiration. She realized that the beauty started to fade, and finally, an old, haggard woman who fell down dead, and a smelling corpse lay on the floor. This was done by the Buddha by his psychic power. Reflecting wisely, she realized how her mind had been deluded with conceit and greed. She listened to the sermon delivered by the Buddha and became an arahant there itself in her, royal clothes. She entered the order, and later she was named the foremost among the Bhikkhunis in wisdom. So you can see here the Buddha advises the yogi who is practicing the higher mind, that is the Noble Eightfold Path and the 8 jhanas, not only to see the thoughts as they arise, but also to purposefully manage them so that we could generate wiser thoughts that would lead to liberation. You can see how it happened with Queen Khema. She inserted a different sign for the sign that she had always carried about herself. In another sutta, in the Anguttara Nikaya, the numerical discourses of the Buddha says that when we live both in public and in private with loving kindness in bodily, verbal, and mental acts, suffering would be eradicated. With the practice of loving kindness, the ordinary consciousness, which is for our survival only, the ordinary consciousness is always for self-support, right? Changes into an egoless one. when we practice loving kindness, then dukkha too would stop. Otherwise, whatever we do, there is always dukkha, right? When unskilled thoughts arise, we would see them and insert skillful thoughts instead. We would learn to stay in the present without going to the past or the future. Friends, this advice of the Buddha is not only for meditators, but even for ordinary people who could benefit from it. Our mind is also conditioned, that is, by causes and conditions. Some of them have come from our past existence, and some added in the present. Quite often, our thoughts incline towards the unwholesome and thus create bad karma. By disciplining the mind, we'll be able to choose our thoughts with wisdom. Can you see the difference? Now, when we get a thought, we don't think about it and try to change it if it is not wholesome, but we just go and act on it, right? All these existences that we have gone through, that is what we have done. So that is why we are here today now. By disciplining the mind, we'll be able to choose our thoughts with wisdom. In order to give up the unwholesome, we should recognize them as unwholesome. But our untrained and unskilled minds are unable to see and know the difference between the wholesome and the unwholesome. The Buddha points to the thoughts connected with desire, hatred, and delusion as unwholesome. The Buddha says, to gain one-pointedness of mind, this letting go of the unwholesome is done like the carpenter. Now, he gives a nice simile, who might use a fine nail to drive out the rusty old nail. You might have seen in your life, perhaps, a carpenter doing that. Similarly, we could replace the object or the theme of the bad thought with a good thought. If we take a closer look at this simile, we'll see that the old rusty nail has eaten into the wood and has become a part of it, so that the new nail is kept on top of it and the carpenter hammers on it to dislodge the old one, which will come out below. Just as the carpenter cannot immediately extract the nail, a yogi also cannot stop the unwholesome thoughts that have taken root in our minds at once. By degrees, gradually putting forth effort, the unwholesome may be replaced by the wholesome. When the skillful thought is appropriate, the replacement is easy. Because you see, when it is appropriate, that means it fits whatever the situation, right? Then it is easier. Because others, if the others also involved, they will also see the efficacy of it, right? For instance, thoughts of impermanence can be put in place of desire. This now see, these are some, just a little example. Now, this one's hands are beautiful, or feet are pretty. When such thoughts about living beings arise, the idea of asubha or unlovely, or the 32 parts of the body would become a different object. Thoughts of hatred can be replaced by loving friendliness, compassion, or metta. You know what metta is, isn't that? So loving friendliness or loving kindness. In the Digiti Kosala Jataka, a prince was able to commit this difficult task of turning hate into loving kindness. Digavu was the son of King Digiti Kosala, whose kingdom was taken over by the king of Benares. The former king lived as an ascetic with his wife, but sent his son away to another state for his safety. Somehow, the tyrant king learned of the former king's hiding place and ordered to torture and kill both him and his wife. You know how things are at that time. You see, things were at that time. Buddha gives lists of punishments that were given at that time. When you read them, you wonder whether actually they took place, right? So anyway, Digavu, the son, saw how the parents died and vowed to take revenge. His father's last advice was not to take revenge. What he said was actually, don't look at the, don't look at things nearby. Think of the, think of what's going to happen in the future. That was what he said. So I'm not giving you the exact words, right? Then his father's last advice was not to take revenge, but be friendly with the tyrant king. When Digavu grew up, he became a close associate of the king, this particular king from Benares, right? One day, he got the opportunity to be alone with the king, because the king now thought of him as a good friend and believed him, trusted him, right? So one day he was alone with the king, and three times, he thought of killing him. But he remembered his father's last words and stopped. He revealed himself, but the king recognized his goodness and gave his kingdom back and his daughter in marriage to him. So you see, when we do not take revenge, we do not get punished either. Sometimes we get, like this, what happened in that Jataka story, we get help, or, we are sort of, how shall we put it, sort of rewarded for our goodness, right? Now we come to the second way of doing things to replace or to control our thoughts, right? How the Buddha gave. This is the second one. In explaining the Buddha's experience, Buddha's own experience, he says that even while the replacement is taking place, if unwholesome thoughts still arise, one could examine the danger in them. Now, that is what he did. When the Bodhisattva thought of how unworthy those evil thoughts were, he felt a sense of shame, hiri, and a fear of the dangerous consequences that may come due to wrongdoing. That is uttappa. Now, can you see the Bodhisattva just before Buddhahood? Even at that time, he too had these thoughts, evil thoughts, bad thoughts, cruel thoughts, harmful thoughts, right? So that shows that we actually, when we get these thoughts, we don't need to be ashamed of them, but try to change our thoughts, right? That is what the Buddha did. Like in the simile of a young man or woman who becomes horrified, humiliated, ashamed, and disgusted if, instead of lovely ornaments, a carcass of a dog or a snake were to be hung on one's neck. When the yogi sees how unwholesome and blameworthy if she or he entertains such evil thoughts, his or her mind would shrink back from such thoughts. By sincerely putting forth effort, if the thoughts of desire or hate or delusion are abandoned, her or his mind becomes steadied, internally quieted, becomes one-pointed and concentrated. So you see, even as a yogi, meditator, when a bad thought comes, what we should do is to change it. Now we come to the third way of controlling our own thoughts. Even while examining the danger in these thoughts, the Buddha says, right, if evil, unwholesome thoughts still arise, one should try to forget them and not entertain them or pay attention to them. Consider whether having jealous, angry, sad thoughts give us a feeling of comfort and pleasure, or agitation, discomfort, and displeasure. You see, now when we get a bad thought, say somebody has said something to us, and we want to retaliate. When that happens, our own mind gets corrupted, and we have to think out ways of taking revenge. So that causes pain to us before we give pain to the other person, right? So that is why Buddha says to consider, right? Think what kind of a person I become when I entertain these thoughts. You see, sometimes there are times when you have to talk to yourself, right? So then one will be able to abandon them. The Buddha says, if someone wants to avoid seeing somebody or not give attention to him or her, you would look away, right? Now, you see somebody that you don't want to talk to or, have anything to do with, you just look the other way, right? That will help. Similarly, do not pay attention to those evil thoughts. In order to steady and quieten the mind, internally and concentrate. The practice of meditation may help to use this technique for when your mind wanders or becomes restless due to a hindrance. You know what the hindrances are, don't you? We simply return our attention back to the breath. You know, when kama-tanha or lustful thoughts come, or the thoughts of ill will come, or restlessness or doubt, or, you know, those are the hindrances. When they come, they don't come all together. One of them may come. And when we see it, we can, let go of it and come back to the breath. If we are doing breath meditation, redirecting our attention is possible because of the reality of impermanence. Everything is impermanent. So this thought is also impermanent. So you can let it go. That everything that arises must vanish too. That is the norm of existence. These vitakkas can drag us to the sansaric stream. So that is why we have to be very careful in what we think also, not only act. Now we come to the fourth one. If disregarding the thought also does not work, then the Buddha advises the yogi to go to the root of the cause, asking the question, what is the cause of thinking this thought? Why am I thinking this thought? Right? What is the cause of its cause? Right? The cause of the thinking, the cause of the previous one that made me think of this particular thought, right? So this is stilling the thought formation so that, we stop our thinking. By this time, instead of an increase in the intensity of the thought, it slackens speed and ultimately ceases. Now that is what the intention of this particular way, that is to stop thinking. The Buddha gives an interesting simile. This is also very interesting. Actually, all the similes that Buddha gives are very, very interesting when you go to see. Now a man is aimlessly walking fast, right? Sometimes we also do that, don't we? Even if we have nothing much to do, here we are walking very fast, right? Then he thinks, now this man who is walking fast thinks, why am I walking fast? What if I walk slowly? While walking slowly, again he thinks, why can't I stand instead? Stand in one place without walking. Then he might think, what if I sit? Then again he thinks, what if I lie down? In this way, the coarser posture is replaced by a more subtle one. Can you see? He walked fast. Then finally, he is now lying down. So each step calms and stills his body and mind. Then ultimately, completely rested, his mind becomes steadied, internally quieted, becomes one-pointed and concentrated. So you can see, when our mind is restless, and we cannot, stop the wandering thoughts, this is one way of doing it, to still the thoughts, so that you go to the root of the thought, then you look for the cause of it. Or, now we have gone into 4 ways of doing it, right? Now we come to the 5th one. Now we come to the last strategy. This is the last one. This is the most radical of all the techniques given to remove the distracting thoughts in one's mind. The Buddha says, if everything fails, one should clench one's teeth and press the tongue against the roof of the mouth and crush the unwholesome state of mind with a wholesome state. Now, it is like, as if you are holding somebody, with your teeth clenched, right? Without allowing that person to go or something like that, you see. So, we are doing that to ourselves now, right? And the weighing down of the mind by unwholesome evil thought should be ended, even in this manner. Can you see how the Buddha, how compassionate the Buddha is to tell us all these things that we would never have thought of if we didn't know. You see, if we didn't know the Buddha's words, we would never have come to know this kind of way of, controlling our thoughts. This is not a method of self-mortification, but a way of great determination. When the mind is steadied, internally quieted, one-pointed, and concentrated, such a person is called a master of the courses of thought. This is given in the book, you see, in the translation of the Pali. This shows one's expertness in mind control. Formerly, she or he was not able to think as she or he wanted, but now is able to think as that one wishes. Then formerly, how did the thoughts come? The thoughts come naturally, from our mind. And we always followed them. No longer is this one a slave of the mind, but the master or mistress. This is one way to stop suffering. The Dhammapada, I'm sure you must be knowing the Dhammapada, which is a very common, and topic, very commonly understood and very popular book, right, of verses. And the Dhammapada says, now I'm going to give you one, I think this is the 2nd verse of the Dhammapada. Mano pubbangama dhamma, mano setta manomaya, manasache pasannena, bhasati va karoti va, tato nang sukhamang veti, chayava anapaini. Now the other one is about dukkha, so I didn't take that one. Now this is the meaning. Mind is their master. All actions are led by the mind. Mind is their master. Mind is their maker. Act or speak with a pure state of mind, then happiness follows, as your shadow follows you without departing. Thank you.
Sadhu, 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 Ayya. Such a wonderful discourse. This is a very beautiful sutta. We all need help of this sutta to calm our mind, because that's the only difficulty I'm sure everybody faces in their own practice. So I'm opening up the forum now, Ayya, with your permission for question and answer.
Yes, please.
And you can please unmute yourself or raise your hand. We will allow you to unmute yourself, and please go ahead and ask your question. You might see difficulties in your own meditation, and you can ask questions related to that, and Ayya will answer as to how your practice should be progressing. So with that, I open up the forum for question and answer. Please raise your hand and ask your question. So Ayya, while everybody else is thinking about it, I had one question. So most of the time we say, if we are kind of trying to get a good thought replaced in place of a unwholesome thought, and we cannot think of quickly a good thought. So what is the way? What is it that we should just go to immediately? That would be very
now it depends on the situation. Now, supposing it is anger, then metta would be the answer. Supposing it is something like jealousy, comparing yourself with others, then it might be helpful to think of the impurities of the body, Now, because you see someone who is very beautiful or handsome or something, and you feel, different, not admiration as such, but something like maybe sort of not dislike, but comparing yourself. There are three ways of looking at something and comparing. That is, you think you are greater, you think the other one is greater, you are less, and the other one is that you are equal. So whatever it is, when you get a thing like that, where you then the situation is something like that, then it is good to think of the impurities of the body, Then, of course, everything vanishes, right, with the impurities. Now, supposing it is something like lustful thought also is the same, like what I said just now. Then let us say some other thought, like what are the other thoughts that could come? You can help me with thoughts that can come.
Hatred, anger.
Yes. Now, supposing it's hatred. Yes. If it is hatred, it's very like anger. So that to replace with metta is a very difficult thing at that time, because your mind is full of, full of anger, full of hatred. And hatred is something that is difficult to dislodge, because sometimes it is something that you have carried for some time, not immediately getting angry. It is something that you have carried with you, So when this kind of thing happens, then it is good to see what a burden it is to yourself. You see, because now when you have, now that is why Buddha says, unburden yourself, Buddha says. So therefore, it is very good to see for yourself. You must be wise also to do that. Wisdom is also necessary when you go to see, when you think of meditating. Wisdom is also very important. But sometimes people become wiser as you go along, right? You are not wise now, but still you are intelligent enough to see for yourself. Now seeing in Buddhism, seeing is a very important thing, because unless you see for yourself what your defilement is, you cannot get rid of it. So therefore, the most important thing is to see, this is a defilement. This is what Buddha has said, that, we pollute ourselves, or we sort of make ourselves lower by holding on to this kind of hatred or a grudge, right? So when you think and then consider these things, then it is easier to, leave it aside. And maybe you don't need to talk to that person. Maybe you don't have to recognize that person. Just as the Buddha said, when you don't want to talk to somebody, you just look the other way. So in the same way, you don't have to go around and, shake hands with that person and then try to be friendly. But at the same time, you don't have to continue any enmity or hatred, because it is something that hurts yourself, oneself. First, why the Buddha says, when you want to hit somebody with a stick, if the stick is burnt on one side and there's excreta on the other side, whichever side you take, you spoil yourself, your hand first before you hit the other person. So it's like that, you see. When you have this kind of hatred or ill will, it hurts oneself first before you hurt the other.
Sadhu, Ayya. I'm going to ask Kalpana to ask the next question. Please go ahead, Kalpana.
Vandami Bhante. Vandami, it was nice discourse. I have a question. The question is like, if you are kind, you are practicing, and even though a close ones who give you abusive things or give you a negative thoughts, even you forgive them, even though you don't react to them, but it's stuck in your head for a long time. So even though you forgive, but you don't want to talk to them, is that something, anger I'm still holding?
It depends on whether you...
It's a close one. It's like it is one of your parent or one of your kid or one of your... It's a close one who my observation, my hindrances, my close ones are more hurtful sometimes. Even though you love them, but they sometimes they hurt you back. So my question is like, even though you stay calm, composed, but it is something in back of your head. You do metta for them, but it is still, sometimes it is in back of your head. It's the thoughts are not gone anywhere. It's still there. That abusive words, it still comes back. So how do you overcome with those kind of thoughts?
Okay, now, the first thing about existence is anicca. Anicca means impermanence. So think of the impermanence of those words also, and the impermanence of that person who has said it, impermanence of yourself. Also, there is another way of thinking. I am going to die. That person is also going to die. What is the use of these words? Mm-hmm. And what is the use of keeping them with me? Keeping them with me is like keeping something dirty, some excreta or something. You're keeping it yourself. You then become, you smell, you start smelling. So in the same way, and sometimes it is not easy to keep it to yourself. You come out with it to another person. Oh, that person said this to me, or that person is like this. And you try to make the other person also dislike that one. So I'm not saying that you do that, but what I'm saying is that kind of thing can happen. Because when you start thinking about certain words that someone has used, it has happened to me. You see, it has happened to me too. what I do is I just look at it and think of the good things that that person has done. You see, now that person has done this, has given this, has said this, has done so much. Why should I keep this little thing in my mind against that person? So like that, there are many, many ways of looking at things, especially when it is another person and someone close to you. After all, if it is someone close to you, even if that person has said something nasty, surely that person must have done certain good things to you too. So think of the good things. Think of the, all the good things that if you don't remember, write them and then look at them, so that you can forget the bad things that were said. If you keep them in your mind, it can come out even from the eyes. You don't have to speak about it. The way you look at that person can feel it. So best thing is to try and get rid of them. Don't think about it again and again and again. The more you think, now you know that the Buddha has said, when you do something good, when you think again and again, you increase the merit. In the same way, when you think of something bad again and again, you decrease the whatever your goodness,
Yeah, my journey was like, I understand. I understand the person might be suffering, person might be angry. I understand. My thing is how to eradicate that things. How to eradicate it. It is my thinking. I know I'm not. I can't control those thoughts. Sometimes it comes. Then I do forgive the person, but it's stuck in head. It doesn't go, even though I understand it is impermanent.
Sometimes, when you say like that, I wonder if it is someone who is always in the house with you. If that is so, then it is very difficult to sort of get over things. But by being sometimes being kind to another person who is nasty, you can still maybe change that person. In one sutta, I think it's the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha says that there are 4 kinds of people. One is Deva, living with the wretch. That is, the Deva is the male, living with a wretch. Then the second is wretch, living with the goddess. The female is a good person, and the wretch is the male. Then there is another couple, that is a wretch living with a wretch, right? And the other one is both are good. They are both God and goddess. So can you see that Buddha himself has said that there are, in certain families, it is impossible to think of a person who is a wretch living with a goddess. So that could also be so. So therefore, instead of trying to match whatever bad, harsh words that are used, if you cannot endure it, what you must do is go away from that place for the moment, without saying anything. Just be silent. Sometimes being silent is also a way of answering the person, because when you answer, then there are more words. So without that, if you remain silent, that also helps.
Yes. yes. Thank you, sadhu. I hope I'll able to I don't know, irrigate, I understand maybe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, your next question is coming from Madhuri. Madhuri,
Yes.
please go ahead and ask your question. You are on mute, Madhuri. Please unmute yourself.
Vandami Bhante. Thank you, sir. I am Madhuri. My question is, what is the difference of Savedana and Bhavana?
Say it again, please. What
What
is the
is
difference between
Savedana and Bhavana?
Savedana? What is that word? I have not come across that word.
Samvedana, so it's like sensations, Vedana, feeling.
Is it only Vedana or Savedana?
So Samvedana would be
Sangvedana. Sangvedana, right?
Samvedana, yes.
And Bhavana.
Bhavana,
Yes.
Now, actually, Vedana is anyway a feeling, isn't it? Now, that is a natural thing that comes. Vedana. Sangvedana is something that that happens as a result of some other thing. You know, Sangvedana, that is due to another thing, this happens. And this happens within you. But all this is mental anyway. Mental. So, Bhavana is also mental. But in Bhavana, what you do is, you are trying to cultivate your mind. You are trying to purify your mind. So, Bhavana actually means purifying your mind. So, when you try to purify your mind, Buddha has given many, many ways of doing it. So, you can choose according to your own ways and your own mentality and your own, likings and disliking. You can choose the subject that you want to meditate on. It could be the breath. It could be metta, the loving kindness, or it could be any of the Brahma Viharas, or it could be impurities of the body, or it could be even kasina. Now we don't use the kasina so much, but it could be one of those. Many, many, many ways of, doing it. So you can choose your own, whatever you like to meditate on. But bhavana means purifying the mind. Now, Sangvedana is where you hear something and the sensation that is created within you by hearing what you, by hearing something, by seeing something, or by thinking something also, it can happen. It's different from bhavana, because bhavana is you choose a topic and then you meditate on that you make it the object of your meditation, or you can choose insight meditation where you look at anicca dukkha anatta, right? So the two are different.
Okay. What I am, I say, this is the bhavana meaning related mind, and Savedana related is our body. This is correct?
It can be not only worry.
We are looking, we are
can be happiness
talking.
too. Can be happiness also,
Okay.
So you can sometimes your happiness has reached such a level that it becomes a vedana. So
Okay.
that also can happen. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Sadhu.
Thank you very much, Ayya. If there are any more questions, please raise your hand or type it in a chat window. Yeah, I'm gonna check if there are any questions in the online session. If there are anything there, I do not see any questions there, Ayya. So if there are no more questions on the call here, we will like to take the sessions towards conclusion.
Yeah, before we conclude, let us give the Devas ask them to share the merit that
Yes,
we
Ayya,
have.
that is how I was going to request you for conclusion, Ayya.
Yeah, let us do that.
Please,
Is it okay if I say it in Pali?
Yes, Ayya, we wanted to chant it in Pali, Ayya.
Okay, then all of you can join me also in sharing the merit.
We will stay muted, Ayya, but we are saying those verses with you, Ayya.
Okay. Ettavatacha amhehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampatti siddhya akasatta cha bummatta devanaga mahiddhika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakkantu sasanang Chirang rakkantu desanang, chirang rakkantu mang paranti. May all beings be well, happy and peaceful. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
So much gratitude to you, Ayya, and thank you for taking such a wonderful sutta for the discourse today. We are grateful for the Dhammadana that you have shared with us, and we wish you good health, Ayya, and we wish to see you again sometime on this forum with some another sutta. If you don't mind, Ayya, can we share the address that where you are at, the location on our group too, so that people staying nearby can sometimes come and visit?
It's 113 Woodridge Circle, Greenville.
Greenville. Okay, yeah. 113 Woodridge Circle, Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Good. Yeah, with that, Ayya, we take your, we ask for your
Okay.
permission if it's okay to conclude today's session, Ayya.
Okay. Thank you.
Sadhu, 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 Ayya. Again, much gratitude to you for the Dhammadana today.